Mike.
Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishabhai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so what we saw is, it's almost like, I think somebody was saying, that you start with a certain statement, and then what you demonstrate how it is true. Yeah. So the Vedic vision is, when we see many, you open your eyes and you see so many different things, and you see a complex world. According to the vision of Vedanta, all that is here is one. And that one is the intelligence which is both the maker and the material cause of the universe. And that is something which is pervading everything and everywhere. So therefore, now, if this is the statement that the Vedas make, then the Vedas have to demonstrate how it is so. Can't just make the statement and say, okay, now you have to take it. So what is a demonstration? There is a demonstration there. They take the example that was given was what? The movement of the sun and the moon. And this movement of sun and moon is not just kind of, things going round. As we saw, it creates northern and southern hemisphere. It creates the year. It creates season. It creates months. It creates day. It creates day and night. It creates high tide and low tide. So that means, and it's something which is going on for billions of years, and with the precision which is what? Incredible. So that means, as Surya was talking about, that if you simulate a universal model and you change the variables even this much, either the universe collapses totally, or it cannot take off in the first place, or it will, it is not a sustainable thing at all. So this is what we are seeing, that it is constantly in flux, but in that flux there is just so much harmony there. Now you can say, oh, what is such a huge enterprise, and then for what? Right? So this is what we say, that then in this enterprise, please understand, this whole big creation, there are entities. These entities are what we call yonis. And different species that exist. And each of the species can interact with the universe through what? Five senses. The five senses, and every living being has some kind of a processing capacity, which is what we call mind. So that means starting from, let's take an animal. Suppose you go to, I don't know, I'm sure some of you have been to some of these national parks in Africa. You go to Masai Mara, for example, and you go to a water body, and you will see all the animals congregating near the water body in order to drink water. Now, while they are drinking water, deers, for example, when they drink water, they are constantly looking here and there. Who told them? Nobody. They didn't go to school, and they didn't learn that, oh, there are, lions who will come and catch you. And therefore you have to protect yourself. They are born with a certain need certain instinct for what we call survival. So therefore, while they are doing it, while they are drinking water very calmly, they look for some, some threat. Now, suppose a lion comes, what happens? They all start running. And they run so fast. Then what a lioness has to actually do a job of chasing, and it's a hard work. I tell you, it's not that they give up their life very easily, not at all. And suppose a lioness gets a prey, then the lioness doesn't start eating it. The lioness will bring it to what? Her, exactly. She'll bring it where her family is. And who eats first?
The male.
The male lion eats first. Then the cubs, and then fine. So she goes and does all the work, and then what? She eats last. Now, the thing is, nobody went to school. They didn't go to school. Nobody told them that, and they are not fighting for what? Lioness are not fighting for what? Emancipation. This is what we call certain intelligence with which they all operate. And if you really want to see how intelligence is there in this, how these ants, how they build ant hills and how complex that structure is. So that means there is an exhibition in that little ant that you see, which for you is just like, there is an intelligence there. So therefore, every human, every entity has the capacity to interact with the universe. Then what is the difference between a human being and every other species? What is the difference with reference to human beings is we are endowed with what we call the faculty of choice, free will. Now suppose you are given a free, first of all, you need to understand what free will means. Why do you even say that there is a free will? So this line Nehru loves. So there is a free will because right now I can demonstrate that we have a free will. What is the thing? The Shastra says that free will, what is the definition is kartum shakyam, akartum shakyam, anyathava kartum shakyam. What does it mean? I can do something, I need not do something, and I can do it differently. This choice is given to us. Now, suppose I'm given a choice, but I have not been given any kind of wisdom to guide my choices, then can I be responsible for things?
Yes.
If I'm not given the guidance of how to use my faculty of choice, then what? Nobody can blame me for doing things because I don't know what to do and what not to do. But suppose that I have a faculty of choice and I have been given the understanding of what is right and what is wrong, which is inbuilt in my structure of the brain, then what? The faculty of choice you are given and how to use it wisely is also given. But you also have a choice not to go along with that knowledge, that also is given. Then it is like you driving and deciding how you want to proceed in your life. So that means dharma. Yeah.
So if, like, this is about Vedanta.
Yes.
But if a person who's leading a normal life
Yes.
and is not aware of the Vedanta
Yes.
study, even if he chooses or doesn't choose or chooses in a different way, is still a free will. It's still a free will. So there's no kind of, like what you said, it is like can't blame, but it is a free will.
This is
free will.
So that means we make choices at every point in our life. And you have to understand this.
But what would be the difference when knowing Vedanta for that person?
Okay, wonderful. Very good. So, this is where I think, yes, this morning Kirti reminded me that I completely forgot to continue with this dharma. So, luckily now dharma comes. Right. So now, this is a very good question for you. Very good question. Now, so suppose now you have a faculty of choice and you are given what is right and understanding of what is right and what is wrong. What does it mean that you are given the understanding of what is right and what is wrong? What does it mean? It means that suppose you have one child from Latin America. You have one child growing up in Africa. You have one child growing up in India and one child growing up in Australia. 4 different corners of the world. And suppose they have not yet gone to school. And nobody has taught them exactly, how they should behave. Each of these child, regardless of what religion they belong to, regardless of what gender they are, regardless of what socio-economic status they have, each child knows, I don't want to be hurt. And each child also equally knows that others don't want to be hurt by me. This is what we call the universal norm. The universal norm, and the understanding of that norm is what? Part of the human program. So that means this is what we call Samanya Dharma. Samanya Dharma means it is universally applicable. It is not culture specific, it is not gender specific, it is not religion specific, it is universal. Now suppose then your question can be like how Faye is asking. So if everybody knows what is I don't want to be lied to, I don't want to be cheated, I don't want to be hurt, and I also know everybody else doesn't want the same from me, then we should have a wonderful world, right? Everybody should behave according to what? This understanding, which is all innate, it's given to us. But when we look out in the world, is that how we see things? No. So what's going wrong there? What's happening there? So that means you're given a faculty of choice. And you're given a free will to what? Exercise the faculty of choice. So what it means is, suppose I know very well that I don't want others to lie to me and I should not lie to others. But suppose my life brings me a situation where by lying I can get a license for a big contract. Then what happens? That person who has to make a choice, it's not that the person doesn't know. But now I have to assess. What I have to assess is, on one hand, what am I gaining? A huge contract. And what is the cost of that gaining that contract? I have to tell what? A lie. Now, as a rash, see, every decision maker is supposedly a rational human being. What is a rational human being? Who is trying to maximize one's gain. This is what we call, this is how the universe is built. Now, in this case, the decision maker has to decide whether he sticks to the truth or what tells a lie and gets the contract. And the contract can be worth, let's say, $1 million, suppose. Now, as a decision maker, what is your primary goal? Tell me. To maximize your gain. That's what generally it is. Now, this decision becomes a little tricky. The decision becomes a little tricky because what happens is, now you think that by telling a small lie, what is your gain? $1 million. And it's very clear to you what you can do with this $1 million. Very clear. You can buy a beautiful house, you can buy a nice car, you can send your kids to a nice school. It's very, very clear. But on the other hand, suppose you decide to not lie, what is your gain?
Much more. Much more.
It seems, right, for somebody, it may seem as though, what is the gain? There is hardly any gain. So that means, as a rational decision maker, what will happen is, what would you choose? Tell me.
Take that money.
To somehow convince yourself, it's okay. Not only I do, but everybody does it. And therefore, you go along with a lie. And in your vision, what happens is, in the scale of your gain, you are gaining. As long as your thinking remains exactly the same, you will sacrifice what the human program that is given to you, not one time, but 100 times. No matter which religious leader tells you, which parent tells you, which teacher tells you, you should speak the truth, whatever, you'll listen to it, but you'll continue to do what you are doing. Why? Because you don't see the gain in following the universal value. So now, if I want you to follow the universal value, by telling you one more time, you should do this and you should do this, I'm actually not helping you in any way. Why? Because you know it already. You came with this knowledge already. So by just reiterating, I'm not helping you in any way. So if I want you to change the way you make your decision, I have to make you see what is the loss. What is the loss to you when you sacrifice on a universal value? What do you lose? This is where this whole intelligent program, that is something which is, the minute it is at work, this whole intelligence is constantly at work. The minute you choose an option, which is, suppose, lying, there is an immediate feedback from the universe. And that feedback is of the nature of what? You feel internal conflict. And that internal conflict is what mostly manifesting as guilt feeling. Now, we human beings are so clever that, we have found some short-term ways to avoid feeling of guilt. So we distract ourselves. How do you distract yourselves? You're feeling guilty. Oh, let's go out and have a cup of coffee. You're feeling a little uncomfortable. Let's go watch a movie. So that means, what do you want to do is avoid confronting what? The feeling that you have within yourself. You may be able to distract yourself for a while, but this feeling is a little lingering feeling. And in addition to that feeling of guilt, there comes another kind of a feedback from the universe, and that is what? Fear. The fear of being found out. So therefore, because even if today nobody finds it out, there is always a possibility that 5 years from now somebody will find out. So that means along with the guilt, you have loaded yourself with what? Fear. Guilt, fear, feeling of conflict, which can manifest as certain amount of discomfort within yourself. In addition to that, there is another major cost, and that cost is you fall in your own self-esteem. Why do you fall in your own self-esteem? Because you know what is the right thing to do, and you know you didn't do it. So that means this is the cost. The cost of going against universal values. Guilt, conflict, fear, then low self-esteem. It doesn't stop there. What can happen is that if you know that I can tell a lie to get something, then in your vision, you feel, oh, others can also do the same, right? I'm not a bad person or anything. If I can do it, others can also do it. Then what happens is you begin to be suspicious of others. So that means you can't take people as they are. You're always thinking, there is a mind which is so at times distorted, convoluted, that just straight conversation they look, oh, what did she mean by that? So that means they're not looking, the sentence itself should convey the meaning. The fact that you're trying to look behind it, it means that you don't have a total trust in what the person is saying. So that means there is a certain element of suspicion that what enters your thinking. In addition to suspicion, over a period of time, if you're constantly suspicious with people and people's motives and everything, you begin to develop a orientation towards the world, and that is what? Lack of trust. You don't trust the world. You don't trust people. Now, what you thought is, I'm gaining what? $1 million, and I'll buy car and house and what? This beautiful, nice education and wonderful. But what you have accumulated in the process is what? Guilt, conflict, fear, low self-esteem, suspicion, and what? Lack of trust over a given period of time. You can be internally so conflicted, and there are some people who have blocked, they can't handle, if they acknowledge everything that is happening to them, they can't handle it. So they completely block themselves. Otherwise they will not survive. But that blocking will last for a while, then a trigger will come, and then what will happen? That conflict will manifest as terrible anger, depression, not feeling good. So that means sometimes, the way we think and the kind of thought processes that we have blocked, and it's amazing, we carry them in our body. then you can have a physical manifestation of diseases. We don't link it all together. That's why we totally lack the holistic view of the world. We look at the universe in small parts, and looking at the small parts, we make huge conclusions. We miss the realities. So, just 1 minute. So therefore, this Samanya Dharma becomes what? The basis for you. It is too much of a loss to sacrifice on certain universal ethical values. In addition to the seen results, there is what we call in the whole of astrology is based on what unseen results which are manifesting at some other time. So that means in addition to being stuck with all of this, let's say 20 years from now, you, let's say, are doing a business with somebody and your partner or your customer cheats you. At that time you feel what? How could he do this to me? But you don't relate what? That somehow the life is intertwined in a way that this cause and effect, it comes back to you. One way or the other, you don't realize. That's why it is called adrushta phalam. It's not totally seen. So the intelligent mechanism is there are two types of results: seen result and unseen result. This is something which is a very peculiar thing about human being. Faculty of choice and the understanding which then guides the faculty of choice. And when we go against our knowledge, the costs of it. Roberto, you had a question?
Yeah, I think because what you said is work perfectly on an individual basis, but what what happened to the community of 7.6 billion human animals, that they are, in my opinion now, unfortunately drifting away. You think that we have capacity to destroy the world by about 5.5 times atomic bombs. We have capacity of destroying all our rivers, etc., with pollution, etc. So where is this, the collective? I mean, it's strange that the intelligence, I know I talk with, Pierre told me that I look limited, but why this intelligence allows the animal, so-called human-animal community to reach this level? Why we are burning our, look what happened to the climate, what happened worldwide.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that it's something,
Yeah.
it's big, and still you have people like, the whole thing is, why?
So why, in the sense that, this is a setup, and the whole thing is, it shows you, right? I mean, world is a mirror of my actions.
Together with
And as Roberto very rightly says, it's not only my actions, it's the collective actions of everybody else around us. But this is where also, Roberto, you can just look at the same thing slightly differently. Suppose, right? Suppose we have a problem you mentioned. Let's look at this problem of environment, right? This environmental problem that we all face, where yesterday I think she was telling, Vibha was telling how she could breathe in Delhi after Deepavali and things like that. So we acted in a way that what even something as simple as breathing has become a struggle. So now who is to blame? Exactly. So that means, and who? Because the thing is, who has contributed to pollution in the air and pollution in the water and pollution in all different forms? Who has done it? Everybody has contributed in some way or the other. And how far back can you go in contribution?
Industrial revolution.
It can be traced back to Industrial Revolution. So that means there are people who made choices and they only were interested in production. They were not interested in very much the consequences of what will happen. So now imagine over how long ago was the Industrial Revolution?
1820?
Yeah, 213 years.
Okay, so that means it's a cumulative action of so many people, so many of us. And as the technology becomes more and more advanced, then what happens is, Roberto, at some point we also begin to, because we human beings also want to solve problem at some level. So you have environment friendly technologies. But suppose you are a CEO of a company and you have to make a purchase and you have to buy an environmentally friendly machinery which will cost you more, and a polluting thing which will cost you less. Even though you sit and complain about the air pollution and all, sometimes your decisions are what? Just conflicting decisions, because when you are wearing a hat of a CEO, you are what? Thinking about only the numbers. You're thinking about, how your balance sheet is going to look, or how your profit statements are going to look. So that means we constantly keep making these kind of choices. At every stage in our life, we are not only affected by our choices, we are affected by what? The choices of everybody else also. And hopefully, when the world presents, the mess that we see around, it kind of, being an intelligent human being, we should be able to reflect and say, hey, there is something wrong in how we are participating in the world. Because what we see outside is what? A result of the choices that we have made as an individual and collective individuals. Now, you may not be able to change everyone, and you may not be able to. This is the difference between a Vedantin and an NGO. Lots of NGOs have emerged. I mean, I used to work with the United Nations. I know the whole of NGO work. So many, they have very, very noble ideas. All they want to do many things in many different areas. Education, healthcare, environment, just gender, so many, there are so many NGOs. Now, you want to change the world, but your capacity to influence, because the world is not only a function of the actions that you take, it is a function of actions that what everybody else takes also. Now suppose I want you to change because I see a huge problem. And if I keep telling you, hey, you should not do this, you should not do this, but if you are operating from your profit maximizing mindset, will you listen to me? You may not listen to me. And if you may not listen to me, how I would feel, tell me. I want to change the world, and the world doesn't get changed at the pace that I want it to change. You have a good intention, but what sets in is a frustration. Please understand, I've seen so many people wanting to do good, and they are so frustrated and they are so angry.
So I missed a little bit of what you were saying, but I was at the place and I think it's going with where you are. So we are a very small part of this intelligence, right?
Yeah, this human body.
Yeah, we all
In
are.
fact, no, this is not, I didn't make that kind of a statement because I have to show you something much more.
Okay, no, but what I'm saying is that it's pertaining to what his question is, that, say I'm comparing it to, say you belong to a certain family, so you have a certain upbringing.
Yes.
So you would expect that somebody from that unit, that kind of upbringing will not do certain things. So I think his question and my question is the same, that if you are part of this amazing intelligence, a very small part, it's also very powerful because you can, if you use it correctly, you
Yes.
can make a lot of good things.
Absolutely.
But I think his question and my question is that, first of all, if you are part of such an amazing intelligence that could create such amazing things, then why do you yourself go towards destruction?
So this is exactly
That's
I
what
was
you're
just
asking, right?
explaining.
Yeah, so that's
So that's what I think that whole discussion about what faculty of choice and then what the understanding of what is right is given, but then there are what some
But also
So-
what he's saying,
Yes.
he's talking about the world.
yes,
The way the developed countries are working,
yes,
they want to make you a consumer.
yeah,
So if everybody, 7.6 billion people start to consume, the planet will finish.
yeah.
So all this consumerism there, nobody is contributing.
See, the thing is, see, we are here not to solve world problems.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
no,
we are
no,
not.
but-
I think what you really need to know is you need to make
Individual,
sense
okay.
of yourself. Because otherwise it's endless.
Different direction.
Exactly. We go
No, no,
in different direction. We have to stick here because we need to understand the way in which we operate in the universe. You may think that that CEO is doing this and these people are doing this. This is how we spend our time, dissatisfied about others.
We can take them
But
question
while,
answer session.
while being so dissatisfied by others, we ourselves do things that are, so much not in harmony, and we overlook that.
For me, Roberto's question is very fundamental.
Yes.
And it brings to what is the relationship between what we say is this all knowledge and this intelligence, which is that you can see in the world. What is the relationship between this all knowledge and all power and the world? What is the relationship?
The whole intelligence is manifesting, all that is here is this intelligence which manifests in different permutations and combinations. That all will come. I
No,
can't-
that's why I'm saying it's an important question. Maybe you will speak about it. But see, the way I see, the way he's asking it, is that if he's saying, yeah, why is this intelligence allowing human being and this planet to go to, I mean, so much suffering and ultimately maybe destruction?
No, but
So
there
then-
are things, just an example.
Sure.
I went to Brazil about 40 years ago. At that time, Brazil was a country not where corruption existed like it's human, but definitely was not endemic. Now corruption in Brazil is there. Another example, United States. Love the United States used to be relatively, now love the United States, it's a bad word because we know pharmaceutical companies in the world have been built by people that have an ideology. Now I don't buy a share of any pharmaceutical company because I know what they do. They develop something and they want to milk the cow to the end, even if they sell pharmaceutical products at incredible price. So the whole thing I see is that we are in a circle going down.
But that's
And
exactly.
you can see that a gate and big people, who the big real billionaire, they try to help more. All the American billionaires, they are really philanthropic, doing fantastic things. But then, at the same time, when I say it happened that you have a Trump as a president of the most powerful country. So this thing, it looks like, and I agree that we are not here to solve the universe.
See, the
but in a certain
collective-
way, it is.
But in fact, Roberto, what you're telling is exactly what I'm saying. That this pharmaceutical guy who's sitting out there making a decision, he knows it. It's not like he doesn't know it, right? His decisions are guided by some other motive. That's all. Because he doesn't see the loss of what going against it. He's creating such a mess in the universe.
You
Now,
write
if-
the prescription, you get a ticket to Bahamas to Believe.
So that means, exactly. So that means at every given point in time, right now, 7.6 billion individuals are making decisions. And there is no, guarantee that they will, you can't say the world is faulty because what the intelligence gives you a knowledge of what is right and what is wrong.
But I would also say that beyond that, I mean, we all have that innate knowledge within us.
That's what I'm saying.
However, we are making choices for short-term gain,
Exactly.
which is always about what's in it for me.
Exactly.
Not the
But
rest.
that's exactly my example was, right? And my whole example was about, I gave that example which showed that, you have a lie on one hand which will get you 1 million, right? And on the other hand, what you have, you know very well that this is not right. So I think, and we all make, so that means it's not you think he's making that decision, that person is making that decision. Look at your chart, he'll tell you you have your own things that you have done in the past. We all have done. So that means what we are now trying to do is instead of trying to solve the world's problem, we are trying to understand the world and improve our participation in the world. Because then it can be so productive. Because if we change our participation in the world, we will inspire maybe 10 more people. But if we just sit and complain about everybody else, then we actually are not doing anything. If we start, the worst thing is if you start believing that the world is just random, unfair place, your participation in that random, unfair universe will also be very bad.
You're creating it.
Because you are, exactly. So while you are blaming the world, you are also creating what? Your own decision-making processes are all skewed with exactly. Because the fundamental belief that you have about the world is that it is an unfair place. It's much better to live with understanding of the world as being intelligent. And it has its feedback mechanisms. And we are so covered by ignorance that we don't observe those feedback mechanisms clearly. And we keep making wrong choices. And this is a class for you to examine, to remove those ignorances so you can begin to make what? Better choices. And when you begin to make better choices, if all of you begin to make better choices in life, not only you will benefit, there is a multiplier. There is a multiplier effect and you will inspire so many people. Not only people who are living now, but generations after. So that means really if you begin to live with this awareness of this intelligence, I'm using the English word intelligence which is so inadequate because the Sanskrit word for that is Ishvara. And that is just so amazingly, you want to better a perfect design. That is our problem. So that means, that's what I said, you have to learn to live with that design. See the beauty of the design and flow with it. And do what you have to do. That is a shift in mindset. Otherwise, I keep telling you, you get stuck with a dissatisfied self. The CEO who is making that decision, he may not even know that you exist. But you are carrying within you what? So much anger towards that person that you have not met. And then what? Certain stories about the universe being unfair and this and that, which reduces your quality of life. So do you want to continue to live like that? That is your choice. That choice is also given. The faculty of choice is so liberal. It gives you that choice also. But as you begin to make choices, what will happen for sure is feedbacks will keep coming back to you. That will not stop. So that means this is a particular, so that means dharma becomes what, as you grow in this, what is the human growth? The human growth is the wisdom with which you begin to use your faculty of choice. As Khatiza was saying, short-term gains seem like big things for us and we miss out on what the costs. The more you can incorporate the costs that are involved, you become a much more responsible decision maker. And as you become more and more responsible decision maker, what will happen to you is the feedback that you get from the universe will be also much better. In astrology, you will have things like, oh, you have some Purva Punya, they have their own language, or you have Guru in the right house, Shani in the right house, all the planets blessing you. What does it mean? That it's an indication of how you are living your life.
So when you faculty of choice, you have only 3 choices. And you need to make the choices based on religion, which is dharma. Which one do you get?
So see, this one thing is very important. Did the question of religion come here?
No, not at all.
Dharma.
Dharma. So that means the law of dharma, this is what? See, suppose you say
No, I'm coming back to the... Well,
yeah, suppose you say I belong to this religion. And suppose I say I belong to this religion, the rules are not different, it is universal, right? So it's like gravity is equal everywhere. It applies to every individual. The laws of dharma apply equally to every individual. There is no distinction.
I want to rephrase the question.
Yes,
I'm sorry,
sure,
but that's
sure.
not right.
No.
I am saying as a human being, I have been allowed for 3 choices. To do, not to do it differently.
Yes.
There is no 4th choice.
There is no 4th choice.
So in that vicinity, I need to use the right action.
Yes.
And that will bring the right results.
Yes.
So for long-term benefit, in accumulation of cumulative action has to be correct towards the goal to get the right benefit.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there is no any 4th choice in action.
There is no
Because
4th
everything
choice
lies
in
in
action.
action.
Exactly.
And action is doing minute to minute.
See, this is a very good point that you're making. Suppose, in a lot of our cultures, sometimes we are given the messages that, let go, don't worry. This is a very common advice people get. Somebody is complaining about somebody, just let go. This is a very common thing that people do. So, which is the choice? To do it, not to do it, and to do it differently. Which advice are they giving among these 3 things? What? Not to do anything, right? Let go means what? Don't do anything. Inaction, right? Now, that may not always be what? The better choice, right? We are kind of told that what? Let go. This Bhagavad Gita is a biggest example of what? That Pandavas let go when Kauravas were unfair, and they let go the first time when Pandu died, and actually Duryodhana had no right to the kingdom, but Yudhishthir let go. Then they built Indraprastha, and he wanted to eliminate them by creating a wax palace. And then he wanted them to all die. They escaped, but they let go. They didn't do anything to confront. Then he was invited for the game of dice, and he knew that this Shakuni was cheating, and he let go. This letting go, which is not doing anything, what did it lead to? Did it solve anything? It led to a huge Mahabharata. So that means that when you let go and let go and let go and don't address the situations.
That is what is happening.
Absolutely. So that means as a human being, you have a responsibility. And when you have to speak up, you have to speak up. And sometimes you can consciously make a decision that, okay, this is not, like you were saying, Kala is so important. This is not the right time. And you can still look for a better time to speak up. That is wonderful. That you're choosing not to do it, but not just, that's not called being passive. You're being very strategic as to when to say it and how to say it. So that means you're constantly making those choices. What to do, when to do, how to do, not to do, for how long not to do, and how to do differently. This is what we say, using your faculty of choice wisely. We don't use this faculty of choice very wisely. We get confused with short-term gains. And when we get confused, our decision making goes a little bit on a tangent, and then all the difficulties start coming to us because we are not aligned. And that's an indication. When difficulties come to you, it is supposed to trigger some thinking in you. What's going wrong in my decision making? But actually, instead of thinking and reflecting and introspecting, what happens is, when difficulty comes, instead of looking at ourselves, we further say oh, that person did this to me. So we are constantly in an angry, dissatisfied mode, constantly blaming everybody else and never looking into ourselves.
Also your condition, no? Since childhood you've been told just let go, forget it, don't fight. You don't confront, forget it. It's also a lot of conditioning, no?
Yeah, so that
keep peace, so just forget it.
Yeah, so you see, that's the thing, that so many of the advices sometimes that we are given are probably not very, this superficial avoiding of the problem is not actually solving the problem.
It's not necessarily bad all the time.
Sorry?
It's not necessarily bad all the time, otherwise
Yeah.
you'll be at war all the time.
So that means you have to use your discretion. That's exactly, see, this is exactly the faculty of choice. What to do, when to do, whether to do it and how to do it. This is exactly the faculty of choice. So you have to use your discretion. There is no rule. So that means you are given this powerful tool to live your life, and you have to use it effectively. And if you don't use it effectively, then there are repercussions, and you have to deal with the repercussions. So this is what a human being is, and that repercussions, what we say is, are not only held for this lifetime, they are carried forward. So what we say, the unseen result of an inappropriate action which will accrue in the future is called papa. And an unseen result of an appropriate action which will accrue result in the future is called punya. How far it is carried forward? Within this lifetime? So what the Vedic vision says is, it's not only in this lifetime that it is carried forward, it is carried forward for what? Many lifetimes. Now, what is the supporting logic? Why should I believe Vedas? Why should I say that, hey, there is something which is going to carry forward? Because I don't see, that people, with my eyes, this is why we say, with 5 sense organs, I don't see Madhav is going to be born, when he is going to be born, as what he is going to be born. Right? I have no idea. And why should I believe that he will be born? What is the basis that I have to believe in that? So there are some supporting logics. So you have to see what are the supporting logics. If I ask you anything in this universe, this Kerala is full of trees, beautiful trees. You take one coconut tree, and if I ask you, how many causes this tree is connected to, and how far back the causes go. What will you say?
Many years.
So that means that this tree came from a seed, and the seed itself came from where? From another tree, and that the tree also came from another seed. And how far back can you trace it to? So that means any cause and effect relationship that we are seeing, anything, does it work within a specified time of 50, 60, 80 years? Even this environment that I'm talking about, starting as Marisa said from Industrial Revolution, who's carrying forward all these cause and effects? Are we carrying and calculating all the cause and effect to produce this state of environment? Are you and me doing it? Something is doing. The intelligence is constantly shifting the universe and doing it. Any cause and effect relationship, in fact, I will rephrase it. Any object that you see in this universe has a cause. And that cause, if I try to look into where is the first cause, there are chains of causes, and how far back do they go? How far back do they go? Starting with the universe. That means even your presence here as a human being is connected to events in the universe like extinction of dinosaurs. How is it connected? While the dinosaurs were existing on this earth, mammals could not survive. It is some activity which made dinosaurs extinct, and then what? The mammals could survive. So that means these cause and effect relationships, any cause and effect relationship. You ask any scientist, genetics, DNA. Is it only your grandparents, is it genes that you're carrying? It is what? How far you go, then. So that means there is no cause and effect relationship in the universe. Forget this karma, which runs for what? 50, 60, 70 years. It is what? Timeless. Along with the creation comes what? Certain laws of cause and effect. And they continue till within cycles and cycles and cycles of creation. So that means just because we don't see it, this is why I say that with your 5 sense organs, the data that you collect is going to be limited. Because you don't have the capacity to know it all. This is why you need the Vedas to give you a big picture, make you see things in a totally different light. And as I keep saying, you have no way to refute what Vedas say. So therefore, this particular thing, so what they say is, you will continue, like every cause and effect continues, and it shows same thing along the movement of sun and moon. They say that if you have lived, if you've done certain karma in this given lifetime, which are good, it will take you to what? Some Chandra Nayana. So that means there is a path of the moon. And if you have done something to remove the ignorance, which is exposed yourself to Vedanta, you go to the what? Path of the sun. So that means that where you go after this life on earth is also revolved around what? different paths, and where you go is determined by the way you have lived on this earth.
When you say where you go after, what does it mean?
So that means there are lokas. So there are different.
Where you go means is it, how does it? Is there any ticket to it?
Okay, where you go? Okay, I will explain that the whole. This is just one thing.
You is what? Is it an
Yeah,
abstract
yeah,
form
yeah,
or-
yeah, it'll come. It'll, the whole thing, who is this you? It'll
Yeah.
come. It'll come. But one thing is that some part of you will survive and then it'll go. But what it is all coming. It'll come. But what here, this verse is just talking about is what, where is the idea finishing? The idea is finishing with the rotation of the sun and the moon is something which provides what? Seasons, years, months, days, and within those days opportunities to interact with the universe. And as you interact, then what? The feedback that you get from the universe. And not only that, but after this life here, what happens to you? That also, whether you go to the sun marga or the moon marga, that also is decided by that. So that is a finishing of this particular what? Thought. Right? So that means so many things. You just think that, oh, the sun is rotating and the moon is rotating and the earth is rotating. But within that rotation, what all is made possible? That is what this verse is talking about. Now, the next verse. The next verse I will do tomorrow. Or do I have time? Yeah, 6:20. No, 7 o'clock you have to meet, no?
You take 15 minutes.
I'll take 10 minutes more. Okay. So now the first question is answered, right? What is one thing I thought we can do. Yesterday, Surya and I were very impressed with, when we asked you to reproduce what I'm talking about, and everybody actually almost reproduced the entire talk of mine. So I thought we'll do it every day. So now you can try to tell, recap. I think it will really help you as to what you are learning here, right? So now, the next question is, Atha Kabadhi Katyayana Upetya Prapacha Bhagwan Kuteha Va Imaha Prajaha Prajayante Iti. Okay, so now,
Verse 1.3.
okay, so now, okay, 1.3 we did. Okay, so 2 point. Okay, now the second one. Atha ha enam bhargavaha vedaibihi prapacha bhagavan tatyeva devaha pracham vidharayante tatara etat prakashayante kaha punaha esham varishtaha iti. Okay, so he says, okay, now how all these different, this so-called intelligence, how does it become, okay, it's a material cause and it is guiding all these movements and making everything possible. But how, how did these planets and human beings and all, how did they come about from intelligence? What happened? Right? So there it says there is a model of creation which is from the intelligence. What here they say is there is a Pancha Mahabhuta creation. What does it mean? That the creation of all these coming about of the forms, the intelligence, from that intelligence, what comes first is what? Pancha Mahabhuta. What are the Pancha Mahabhutas? Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha and Prithvi. So what is space? Akasha, Vayu is air, Agni is fire, Apaha is water, and then Prithvi is the earth. Right? So now, this whole universe that you see is nothing but permutation and combination of these 5 elements. You look at your physical body. In fact, what you will find is this whole sophisticated body, which is a work of intelligence, but it is made up of what we call 5 elements. Where do you see these 5 elements? So, every organ in your body is placed within what? Space. The gap between 2 different organs is what? Is because it exists in space. There is some space in between. Even if it is milliliters or millimeters of space, there is always a space. So that means there is space. Not only your body exists in space, but there is internally all the different organs are what? Set in a given place. They occupy a given place in space. Then, Vayu. Where is Vayu? You try to live and sustain this body without taking in air. How long will you survive? Just close your nose and keep your mouth shut. So that means you not only you constantly need air to sustain your body. Akasha, Vayu, Agni. Where is Agni? Where is fire in your body? Absolutely. So for Ayurveda, if you go for Ayurveda treatment, the whole purpose is to what? Ignite your Jathara. There is a whole fire in your body which actually takes in the food, digests the food, assimilates the food, nourishes the body. If that is not working well, everything begins to go down. So they just concentrate on your Jathara. And this is why all these things of deprivation, they are so against it. Because they said you imbalance the whole system. You need to take different ingredients and things. You can't just cut off things. But you have to improve your assimilation so that you extract the right things from different foods to nourish your body. That is the whole purpose of Ayurveda treatment. So there is this Agni, which is what? Making the external food is what? Digested, and then what? It nourishes the body. So there is Agni. Then Apaha. What percentage of your body is water?
Most of your body is water.
70% of your, so that's why what people do when they want to lose weight is go to sauna. Then they go to sauna, what happens? The water is what? Exactly, you're dehydrated, it evaporates, so then your weight, So that means your body is combination of space, air, fire, then water, and ultimately earth. So that means what? Every organ is ultimately what? All just carbon. So therefore, and this is why it's amazing if you, I don't know if anybody has seen that after the body is cremated, if you, what you take is what? Those ashes and those, what? Asthi. So that is all just earth. So that means the physical body, not only human physical body, but the body of every species in this world is made up of what? 5 elements. Akasha, Agni, Vayu, Apaha and Prithvi. Not only the living beings, But also, if you look at the stars and the planets and all, ultimately it is what? Same elements. So the farthest star. So what makes for the variety in this universe? You see mountains, you see rivers, you see so many species, you see trees, you see so many different birds, aquatic creatures, insects. The whole thing is nothing but what? 5 elements. What accounts for difference is what? Different permutations and combinations. They are not, if I give you 5 elements and say, okay, prepare a body, can you do it? No. This is where you can intimately see the work of intelligence. The work of intelligence is such that there is no human body which is exactly identical to another body. And at the same time, every human being has a certain range within which it works. The eyesight of a human being is programmed differently from eyesight of an eagle. An eyesight of a dog, it's all different, programmed differently. So that means as a human species, we all have a common range, but within the common range, we have what? Infinite variations. There is no, another Neelu will not be born in the whole universe again. You are a unique person. This is true for everyone. If you begin to look upon your own body, your own being, as a work of this amazing intelligence, which is a unique creation, and there will never be a repetition like this, ever. Will you have low self-esteem? This is not ordinary knowledge. This is not just to tell you, oh, it's 5 elements. It has some wisdom behind it. It is leading to shifts in perspective, so deep, so profound, which are all based on facts. Then what? Do you need to disregard? This is a gift that you have received. A unique gift which will never come back. It's a unique creation. So that means now these 5 elements are coming together to prepare, to create the entire what? All the different species. A common range within the species, and at the same time uniqueness. Within Sajati there is a Bheda. Sajati means same species, there is infinite variation. So therefore, this is what we call the 5 elements. Now, how did these 5 elements come about? This is where what Vedanta says is totally converging with quantum physics. Take one element. What is one element? Let's take water. This water element itself is a combination of what? Atoms. 2 H2O, 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. And when they combine together, what does it become? Water. So that means that these combinations are already done, and so intelligently that the water gets the properties which are neither belonging to what? Hydrogen not belonging to oxygen. The combination creates what? A different property altogether. And when it creates another property and it also then has a function, it quenches my thirst, it detoxifies my body, it cleanses my blood, it does so many different functions. And not only does it for me, it also does it for that lion. So therefore, this is what we call the whole arrangement is what the water itself is what a combination, coming together of atoms. The atoms are also coming together of all what? Particles. How? Particles are what? Electrons, protons and neutrons. How did they come together and create what? Atoms. And there is a value added in the property of atoms which doesn't belong to any of the three components of what? Which are the particles. Intelligent arrangement. 5 elements. Each of the 5 elements in turn is what? Permutation and combination of atoms. Atoms are also permutations and combinations of particles. And at every level of organization, there is a work of intelligence. There is a change of property and there is what? Change in enhancing of the functions. So therefore, this is the 5 elements themselves, and this is what we see, the whole quantum physics. What we think is all very tangible and real. What does quantum physics do and what Vedanta does? We'll see it now. This table that we see, quantum physics will say, hey, this table of course is there, but ultimately it is what? Huh? Wood. And the wood in turn is what? The tree. And the tree itself is what? Different cells. Then cells is nothing but what? Molecules, atoms, particles. So that means this tangible object that is so seeming so real to us is nothing but forms within forms, within forms, within forms. And at every level of organization, what it gains what? Additional properties and additional properties and additional properties. How far can physics go? Up to where? After particles what? Quarks, and then they keep going further, but then they don't know. They don't know because they think that one object, that tiny little object is what? The substratum of the whole universe, and they'll never find it. Because every form in turn reduces to another form. So where does it all end? It ends at the intelligence. The intelligence from which the tiniest of particle comes. That intelligence in turn what organizes those particles to make into atoms. The atoms organized by the intelligence creates different objects. And different objects include what? The stars, the sun, the moon, the earth, human beings, birds, animals, aquatic creatures, everything. So that means here and now, just as I can collapse the table into Ishvara right now in front of you, I can collapse any object in the universe into Ishvara right now. Take this body. Same story. It's different organs that you have, liver and kidney and they are all nothing but same story. Cells, molecules, atoms, particles, quarks, and ultimately, even in the quantum physics, basically they can't, after particle, there is nothing tangible about anything. The whole of physics is what? Based on formulas. You can't see anything. So that means what there is intelligence. This intelligence is what we call Ishvara. And it's not only at the base, it is what? At every level of organization. First, it brings into manifestation what the minutest of the minute particles, then organizes it, and at every level of organization, it adds properties. And by adding those properties, what comes out is this varied universe with its countless names and forms. And the forms are organized in a way that there is what we call Sajatiya Bheda, Vijatiya Bheda, and Swagata Bheda. That is the variety. What does it mean? Vijatiya Bheda means that between one jati and other jati, there is a difference. Within a human being and a animal, there is a difference. That is what we call Vijatiya Bheda. Then there is Sajatiya Bheda. What is Sajatiya Bheda? Every human being, which is the same jati, there is a Bheda. Every body is different from other body. Sajatiya Bheda. And then there is Swagata Bheda. Swagata Bheda means within one body, there are what? So many different organs which make one body what it is. At all these levels, the whole thing is work of intelligence. Who made it? Who made the whole intricate creation that you see right in front of you? So that means that this Ishvara, using this, according to the Vedic model, using these 5 elements, made what? This whole universe. Now, in the Vedic culture, this understanding is very much pervading. This is why, if you go to South India, 5 elements are not just seen as atoms. They are seen as what? Manifestation, the first manifestation of Ishvara. You go to Chidambaram, what? The Ishvara in form of space is worshipped. You go to Kalahasti. Ishvara in form of Kalahasti is what? Yeah, but it is air or no, I don't know. So, Vayu. Vayu Tattva. Right? So that means the air is worship. It's manifestation of intelligence. Then in Trichy, you have what? Water is. Trichy is water. Yeah. And in Tiruvannamalai, there is Agni. So that means 5 elements are not just seen as dead 5 elements. They are seen as what? Manifestation of the intelligence, from which the entire creation comes. So that means this whole understanding that everything is pervaded by Ishvara. And in fact, if you look at the universe, there is nothing other than Ishvara. Because any form you look is just what? Permutation and combination of different things which are put together. And those things which are put together, they themselves are manifestation of Ishvara. So that means not only we say Ishvara is everywhere, we say there is only Ishvara. There is no second thing in this universe. This is how far the vision goes. Show me something else other than Ishvara. There is nothing else. So therefore, that everything is Ishvara, how does a human mind, we are not used to looking at the universe like that. How are we looking at the universe? Poor me. Oh, this is happening to me. Oh, that is happening to me. And people are like that, and the countries are like that, and the politicians are like that. This is how our mind works. And with that, in that frame of mind, with that paradigm, you can't but be dissatisfied. If you want to get rid of your dissatisfaction, keeping your paradigm exactly the same is not possible. Really, it's not possible. You need to shift to a vision which is, first we started with Ishvara is everywhere. Now the second level that we went to is all that is here is Ishvara. There is no second thing. There is intelligence which is pervading everything. And this is why, in addition to the 5 elements, if you look at the Vedic culture, it will worship tree is what they'll put what some thread or they'll worship the tree. They will worship the waters. They've all come to Rishikesh. They have seen it is simple Rishikesh town people. They don't know Vedanta, they don't know anything. I mean, they haven't studied anything, but the relationship that they have with Gangaji. Every evening they come and they offer, their flowers, their little diya. That is culture. That is culture. Inbuilt in that culture is the vision of the presence of Ishvara. When you look at the sun, you don't only look at just hydrogen atoms which are converting into helium to provide you energy. You see the work of intelligence. This is why I used to live in Bombay by the beach for a while. And it was amazing how many people who walk in the morning, how many of them stop and do namaskara to the sun. Quite incredible. So that means if you bring back this whole understanding, your relationship with the universe will change. Your relationship with yourself will change. You no longer can think about yourself as a useless person. Who's lacking and who's always dissatisfied. There is a change, there is a shift. Now, in the next class, I will explain that what is this, we have these so-called entities called Shiva, Vishnu, then what? Brahma, Lakshmi, Saraswati. What is all of that? It is all embedded in this Vedic vision. I will explain that a little bit more.
Thank you so much. Brilliant.
Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri